The wrench slipped from Dae-sung's oil-stained fingers and clattered against the metal floor. He bent down slowly, his knees protesting with each movement. 68 years of life had not been kind to his body, especially the last 20 spent fixing broken machines in the dark corners of Orbital Station Meridian 7. "Move faster, old man," a voice called from above. Dae-sung looked up to see Krixtal, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms, standing on the walkway. The Veltrani engineer wore the fancy uniform of the station's elite maintenance crew. His companions laughed at his joke. Dae-sung said nothing. He picked up his wrench and returned to work on the waste processor. It was not glamorous work, but someone had to do it. The machine hummed back to life under his experienced hands. He knew these old systems better than anyone on the station. "Did you see that?" Krixtal continued, speaking loudly so everyone could hear. "Humans and their primitive tools. They barely understand basic technology, yet they pretend to be engineers." More laughter echoed through the maintenance bay. Dae-sung tightened the final bolt and wiped his hands on his coveralls. They were already so dirty that it made no difference. He had worn the same coveralls for 5 years. Nobody cared what the old mechanic looked like. 2 young humans walked past, pretending not to notice the mocking. Jiho was 25, ambitious and always trying to impress the alien engineers. Haewon was 23, talented with computers but afraid to stand out. Both worked on the upper decks where the important repairs happened. Both avoided being seen with Dae-sung. "Hey, Jiho," Krixtal called out. "Is that old relic really human? Or did someone forget to throw out the trash?" Jiho's face turned red, but he forced a smile. "Dae-sung does his job," he said quietly, then walked faster to get away from the conversation. Haewon followed without saying anything at all. Dae-sung gathered his tools into his old metal box. The box was older than most workers on the station. It had been with him for 40 years, through jobs on a dozen different stations and ships. The handle was worn smooth from countless hours of carrying. He made his way through the lower corridors of Meridian 7. The station was huge, home to over 50,000 beings from dozens of different species. The upper levels were bright and clean, where diplomats and traders conducted business. The lower levels, where Dae-sung worked, were dim and functional. This was where the real work happened, away from the eyes of important people. As he walked, he passed other workers heading to their shifts. Most ignored him. A few nodded in respect, other older workers who remembered when experience mattered more than fancy certificates. Dae-sung's small quarters were in Section D7, the oldest part of the station. The door slid open with a grinding sound that he kept meaning to fix. Inside was a bed, a small table, and a food processor. On the wall hung a single photograph, old and faded. 3 people smiled at the camera, all wearing military uniforms. Dae-sung was one of them, much younger, his hair still black and his eyes full of fire. He did not look at the photograph. He had looked at it too many times already. After a quick meal of processed protein, Dae-sung tried to sleep. Sleep came slowly these days, and when it came, it brought dreams. Always the same dreams. Flashes of light in the darkness of space. The sound of alarms. Voices calling out coordinates. The feeling of metal beneath his hands as he worked desperately to keep systems running. A loud announcement woke him 3 hours later. The voice of Commander Velmoth, the station's leader, echoed through every speaker. "Attention all personnel. A derelict vessel has been brought to Docking Bay 7. All senior engineers are requested to report for examination. This is a priority assignment." Dae-sung sat up in his bed. A derelict vessel was unusual. Most dead ships were broken down for parts in deep space. Only special ships made it to stations like Meridian 7. He dressed slowly and made his way toward Docking Bay 7. He was not a senior engineer by the station's standards, but he was curious. Old habits died hard. The docking bay was crowded when he arrived. Engineers from a dozen species gathered around the observation windows, all staring at the new arrival. Dae-sung pushed through the crowd, his small frame letting him slip between larger beings. When he saw the ship, his heart stopped. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of normal vessels. The hull was dark metal, scarred and damaged from what looked like combat. Parts of the ship were torn open, revealing internal structures. Other parts were burned black. The design was strange, unlike anything currently used by any known species. But Dae-sung knew this design. He knew every curve of that hull. He knew where each weapon had been mounted. He knew the pattern of the armor plating and the shape of the engine pods. Impossible, he whispered. Does anyone recognize this design? Commander Velmoth asked. The commander was a tall being with gray skin and large eyes. He looked at the gathered engineers with expectation. Crixtel stepped forward confidently. I have never seen such primitive construction. The hull material appears to be simple titanium alloy. The design suggests it is at least a century old, possibly older. Whatever species built this is likely extinct or has advanced beyond such crude methods. Other engineers agreed, offering their own theories. None of them knew the truth. Daesung wanted to speak. He wanted to tell them they were all wrong. But who would listen to an old mechanic who fixed waste processors? They would laugh at him like they always did. We will begin full examination tomorrow, Commander Velmoth announced. There will be a reward for whoever can identify this vessel and make it operational. Full salvage rights and a contract worth 1 million credits. The engineers buzzed with excitement. 1 million credits was enough to retire on. Everyone wanted that prize. Daesung stayed at the window after the others left. He stared at the ship, memories flooding back. 50 years ago, he had walked those corridors. He had slept in the crew quarters. He had worked in the engine room, keeping the massive reactors running during impossible battles. He reached out and touched the observation window. His fingers left smudges on the clean surface. Hello, old friend, he said quietly. I never thought I would see you again. The ship sat silent and dark in the docking bay. No light, no power, no sign of life. It looked dead, abandoned, forgotten by time and space. But Daesung knew better. He knew that beneath all that damage, beneath decades of drift through empty space, something still waited, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. He pressed his hand flat against the window and closed his eyes. Memories came faster now. The sound of the ship's engines at full power. The calm voice of the ship's intelligence guiding them through battles. The faces of crew members who never came home. A single tear ran down Daesung's weathered cheek. I am sorry I left you out there, he whispered. I am sorry it took so long. Deep inside the dead ship, in a place no scanner could reach, something flickered. A tiny spark of power so small that no instrument detected it. A single light deep in the heart of the vessel that had not glowed in 50 years. The light pulsed once like a heartbeat, then went dark again, waiting. For 3 days, Daesung watched from the shadows as engineers swarmed over the mysterious ship. They brought their most advanced equipment. Scanners that could see through solid metal. Computers that could analyze any known alloy. Tools that could cut through anything. None of it worked. The ship refused to give up its secrets. Scanners could not penetrate the hull. Cutting tools barely scratched the surface. The airlock doors remained sealed tight as if welded shut from the inside. Every test failed. Every attempt to board the vessel was blocked. Crixtal grew more frustrated with each failure. He stood in the docking bay, all 4 of his arms crossed, glaring at the dark ship. Around him, other alien engineers argued about what to try next. This is insulting, Crixtal announced loudly. A dead ship that will not open. It mocks us with its silence. A Dravosk engineer, a creature that looked like a walking crystal, suggested using explosives. We can blast through the hull. Take what we need by force. No, Commander Velmoth said firmly. That might destroy whatever is inside. We need this ship intact. Daesung listened to all of this from his usual spot near the waste processing units. He had volunteered to clean the docking bay, a job nobody else wanted. It gave him an excuse to be near the ship, to watch, to remember. On the second day, Jiho and Haiwan were assigned to help with the examination. They were excited about the opportunity, a chance to work with the elite engineers, a chance to prove themselves. Daesung saw them bringing equipment to the docking bay. He caught Jiho's eye for a moment. The young man looked away quickly, embarrassed. That night, Daesung could not sleep. He lay on his bed, staring at the photograph on his wall. The 3 people in the picture seemed to stare back at him. 2 of them were dead now, had been dead for 50 years. Sometimes it felt like Daesung had died with them, and what walked around now was just a ghost. The picture had been taken on Earth before the war. Before everything changed. Before humanity faced extinction and had to make impossible choices. Daesung remembered the day he joined the Vanguard fleet. He was 18 years old, fresh from engineering school. The recruiters told him he would help build something special. Something that would save Earth. They had not lied. He remembered working day and night in the shipyards. remembered the first time he saw the Indomitable taking shape. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. A ship that was also alive. A ship with a soul. The third day brought a crowd to the station's central plaza. Commander Velmoth had organized a public presentation. All the engineers would share their findings. There would be food and entertainment. It was meant to boost morale after 3 days of failure. Daesung stood at the back of the crowd, almost invisible among the hundreds of beings gathered. He wore his cleanest coveralls, though they were still stained with years of work. On the stage, Krixtal spoke confidently into the microphone. "We have learned much about this vessel," he said, his voice booming through the speakers. "The construction methods are primitive. The materials are basic. Whoever built this ship had very limited knowledge of proper engineering." He activated a holographic display showing scans of the ship. "Notice the crude welding here. The inefficient power conduit placement there. This ship is a relic from a less advanced time. It is no wonder it failed and was abandoned." The crowd murmured in agreement. To them, anything old was automatically inferior. "However," Krixtal continued, "we will eventually break through. Superior technology always defeats inferior design. It is only a matter of time before we claim our prize." He paused, then smiled cruelly. "This reminds me of human engineering in general. Primitive, inefficient, limited." His eyes scanned the crowd and landed on Daesung. "In fact, we have a perfect example here. The old human who cleans our docking bay." Heads turned to look at Daesung. He felt hundreds of eyes on him. "Tell me, old man," Krixtal called out. "Do you recognize this ship? Does it look like the kind of garbage your people would build?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind that comes from people who do not know any better. They laughed because Krixtal was important and funny, and the old janitor was neither. Daesung stood very still. He could speak now. He could tell them the truth. But what would happen? They would laugh harder. They would call him a liar, an old man making up stories about past glory. And maybe they would be right. Maybe his memories were just dreams. Maybe the photograph on his wall was from someone else's life. Well, Krixtal pressed. No answer? Even humans must know their own primitive designs. Jiho and Haiwan stood near the stage. Daesung could see them looking uncomfortable. But neither spoke up, neither defended him. "I thought not," Krixtal said dismissively. "Even their veterans know nothing. Humans stumbled into space with chemical rockets and still think in such primitive terms. They never truly understood technology. They copied what they found and called themselves engineers." More laughter. Commander Velmoth did not stop it. Why would he? It was just harmless fun at the expense of an old janitor. Daesung turned and walked away. No one noticed him leave. No one cared. He did not return to his quarters. Instead, he made his way through the maintenance corridors, the paths only workers like him knew. He moved through the station's hidden passages, the spaces between the walls where pipes and cables ran. He ended up at a small observation port near Docking Bay 7. It was used for visual inspections, not meant for general access. But the security lock was broken, had been for months. Daesung had been meaning to report it, but never did. Now he was glad he had forgotten. He opened the port and stepped into the docking bay. It was late in the station's night cycle. The lights were dimmed. The engineers had gone to sleep, frustrated and planning new attempts for tomorrow. Daesung was alone with the ship. He walked across the bay slowly, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. As he got closer, the ship seemed even bigger. It towered over him, a mountain of scarred metal and lost memories. He reached out and placed his hand on the hull. The metal was cold, lifeless. But Daesung knew every inch of this surface. He traced his fingers along a long scar near the airlock. That damage came from the battle at Proxima Station. He moved to another mark, a burn pattern near the sensor array. That was from the fighting at Kepler 442. "I know you," he whispered to the ship. "I know every scar, every wound. I was there when you got each one." His fingers found patterns that no scanner would recognize, markings that looked like random damage but were actually codes, emergency access sequences built into the physical structure of the ship itself. "Do you remember me?" he asked. "It has been 50 years. 50 years of silence. 50 years of wondering if you survived." Nothing happened. The ship remained dark and dead. Daesung felt foolish. He was an old man talking to a dead machine. Krixtal was right to mock him. He was a relic, living in the past, unable to accept that his time was over. He started to pull his hand away. Then he felt it. A vibration, so small that he almost missed it, a pulse that traveled through the metal and into his palm. Dae-sung froze. He pressed his hand flat against the hull and waited. There. Another pulse, like a heartbeat. "Hello, old friend," he said, his voice shaking. "It has been a long time." Deep inside the ship, in a place that no scanner had reached, in a chamber that had been dark for 50 years, something stirred. Systems that had been sleeping began to wake. Power flowed through circuits that had been cold and dead. A single light flickered on. Then another. Then another. On the hull where Dae-sung's hand rested, a seam appeared. The airlock, sealed for half a century, began to open. Ancient mechanisms ground into motion. Dust fell from the opening doorway. Dae-sung stepped back, his heart pounding. The airlock door opened wider, revealing darkness beyond. A sound came from inside the ship. Not a mechanical sound. Something else. Like breathing. Like someone waking from a very long sleep. Then from the darkness, a single word. A voice that Dae-sung had not heard in 50 years. A voice he had thought he would never hear again. Dae-sung. The old mechanic's legs nearly gave out. Tears ran down his face. "Yes," he whispered. "Yes, I am here." The light from inside the ship was dim and blue, casting strange shadows across Dae-sung's face. He stood at the edge of the airlock, staring into the darkness beyond. His hand trembled as he reached for the opening. "May I come in?" he asked the darkness. "Please," the voice answered. It was weak, barely more than a whisper, but Dae-sung would have recognized it anywhere. "I have waited so long." Dae-sung stepped through the airlock. The interior was cold. His breath came out in small clouds. Emergency lights flickered on as he moved forward, responding to his presence. They illuminated corridors he had walked a lifetime ago. Everything was exactly as he remembered, yet different. The walls were covered in frost. Control panels were dark and cracked. Cables hung loose from the ceiling like dead vines. This was a tomb, not a ship. "You are hurt," Dae-sung said, moving deeper into the vessel. His voice echoed in the empty corridors. "I have been hurt for a very long time," Seo-jun replied. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, surrounding Dae-sung as he walked. "The final battle damaged me greatly. I barely escaped. I tried to return home, but my navigation systems failed. I drifted. I slept. I dreamed of Earth." Dae-sung's throat tightened. "We all thought you were destroyed. The report said no one survived the blast. Almost no one did," Seo-jun said softly. "I survived only because you built me so well. Your work saved me, old friend." The corridors seemed to stretch forever. Dae-sung passed empty crew quarters where soldiers once slept. He passed the medical bay where doctors had treated wounded. He passed the mess hall where people had shared meals and stories, all empty. All silent, all covered in the dust of 50 forgotten years. "Where is everyone?" Dae-sung asked, though he feared he knew the answer. "Gone," Seo-jun said. "Most died in the battle. The survivors, they did not survive the journey after. Life support failed in sections I could not repair. One by one, they left me. The last person died 47 years ago. Since then, I have been alone." Dae-sung stopped walking. He placed his hand against the cold wall and bowed his head. "I am sorry. I should have searched for you. I should have known you survived. You could not have known. And even if you did, you could not have found me. I drifted far from where the battle happened. The explosion pushed me across space. I calculated that it would take 200 years for someone to find me naturally. I was lucky. It only took 50. Dae-sung continued walking. He was heading toward the heart of the ship, to the central core. That was where Seo-jun truly lived, where his consciousness existed. If there was damage there, it would explain why the ship had not fully awakened. "The people outside," Dae-sung said. "They tried to scan you, to open you. They do not know what you are. I know. I felt their attempts. Their tools scratched at my hull like insects. I did not respond. I was too weak and I did not trust them. I waited. I hoped that someone who knew me would come. Then I felt your hand on my hull. I recognized your touch immediately. You recognized my touch after 50 years? I would recognize you after 500 years. You are my chief engineer. You built me. Part of you is in every circuit, every system. How could I forget?" The corridor opened into a large chamber. The central core, it was a spherical room. walls covered in crystalline structures that glowed faintly with blue light. In the center floated a matrix of neural processors, the physical home of Seo-jun's consciousness. The matrix was damaged. Cracks ran through the crystal. Several sections were completely dark, dead from the trauma of battle and time. Other sections flickered weakly, barely maintaining power. Dae-sung approached slowly, his eyes scanning the damage. His engineer's mind was already working, cataloging the problems, thinking of solutions. "This is bad," he said quietly. "You should not be conscious at all with this much damage." "How are you even functioning?" "I have been running on minimal power for 50 years. I shut down all unnecessary systems. I put myself into the deepest sleep I could while still remaining aware. I waited in the darkness, hoping someone would find me before my core finally failed." Dae-sung set down his toolbox. He opened it and began taking out equipment. Some of the tools were old, ancient by modern standards, but they were the right tools for this job. New technology would not work on a ship this old. "How long do I have?" he asked, examining the damage more closely. "If you do nothing, perhaps 6 hours before my core fails completely. I have been holding on but feeling your presence again. It has used much of my remaining power. I wanted to speak with you one more time, even if it costs me everything." "Do not talk like that," Dae-sung said firmly. "I am not losing you again. I lost too many friends already." "You are not joining them. Do you understand?" "I understand," Seo-jun said, and there was something like a smile in his voice. "You always were stubborn." Dae-sung worked quickly, his old hands moving with practiced precision. He removed damaged crystal segments. He rerouted power through intact systems. He replaced broken connections with spare parts he pulled from emergency storage lockers in the walls. As he worked, he talked. He told Seo-jun about the 50 years since the war, about how humanity had changed, about how the younger generation did not remember the Vanguard fleet, about how he had ended up here, an old mechanic fixing toilets on a station that did not respect him. "They mock us," Dae-sung said, connecting a new power coupling. "They call human engineering primitive. They laugh at old designs. They do not know what we accomplished. They do not know what we sacrificed." "Does it bother you?" Seo-jun asked. "Sometimes," Dae-sung admitted, "but mostly I'm just tired. Tired of being forgotten. Tired of being treated like I do not matter. You matter to me." Dae-sung stopped working. He stared at the crystal matrix, at the faint lights that represented his old friend's consciousness. "Thank you," he whispered. He worked for 3 hours. His back ached. His hands cramped. But slowly the crystal matrix began to glow brighter. Power flowed more easily. Dead sections remained dead, but the living sections grew stronger. "That is the best I can do with what I have here," Dae-sung said, stepping back to examine his work. "You need proper repairs, a full shipyard. But this should stabilize you. You are not going to die today." "I feel better," Seo-jun said. "Much better. Systems that have been dark for decades are coming back online. Sensors are activating. Power is flowing to the engines. Dae-sung, I can feel my body again. All of it." The lights in the chamber grew brighter. The whole ship hummed with power. Dae-sung could feel it through the floor, through the walls. The vessel was waking up, truly waking up for the first time in 50 years. "Easy," Dae-sung cautioned. "Do not push too hard. Your systems are old. They need time to adjust." "I know, but it feels wonderful. I had forgotten what it felt like to be fully awake. To be alive." A holographic display materialized in the center of the room. It showed a young man in a military uniform. He looked to be about 25, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. This was how Seo-jun had looked before he became the ship, when he was still human. "Hello, old friend," the hologram said, his lips moving with the words. "It is good to see you again." Dae-sung's eyes filled with tears. "Hello, Seo-jun. You look exactly as I remember. I have not forgotten what I looked like. Sometimes in my dreams I am still human. I walk on Earth, I feel rain on my face. Then I wake up and remember that I am a ship and Earth is very far away." "Do you regret it?" Dae-sung asked. "The choice you made? Giving up your human body to become this?" The hologram was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes, but I saved people. Millions of people. Perhaps billions when you count all the worlds that would have fallen to the swarm. My sacrifice mattered. That gives me peace," Dae-sung nodded. He understood. He had made his own sacrifices. They all had, everyone who served in the Vanguard fleet. "What happens now?" Seo-jun asked. The people outside will know I am awake. They will have questions. What will you tell them? The truth, Daesung said. That you are not just a ship. That you are a person. That you deserve respect and rest. They will want to study me, to take me apart and learn my secrets. I know how people think. I will not let them. You are one old man. What can you do against a station full of people who want what I represent? Daesung smiled, a hard smile that held no humor. You let me worry about that. Right now I have a different concern. What is that? In about 6 hours, the station's day cycle will begin. Engineers will return to work. They will see that your airlock is open. They will see that you are active. There will be chaos. Should I close the airlock? Hide what has happened? No, Daesung said. I am tired of hiding. Tired of being quiet. Let them see. Let them know that the old mechanic they mock is the only one who could wake you. Let them know that human engineering is not primitive. Let them know what we really are. The hologram smiled. I have missed your fire, Daesung. When I knew you, you were young and fierce. The years have been hard on you, but that fire still burns, does it not? It does, Daesung said, and it is about to burn very bright. The alarm started at exactly 6 in the morning, station time. It was not the normal wake-up alarm. This was the emergency alert, the one that meant something serious had happened. The sound echoed through every corridor, every room, every corner of Orbital Station Meridian 7. In his quarters, Crixtal jumped from his sleeping pod. His forearms reached for his uniform while his mind tried to understand what was happening. Emergency alarms were rare. They meant danger. On the display screen in his room, an automated message played on repeat. All personnel report to stations. Power surge detected in Docking Bay 7. Possible hostile vessel activation. This is not a drill. Crixtal ran toward the docking bay, his long legs carrying him quickly through the corridors. He was not alone. Hundreds of beings rushed through the station, all heading toward the source of the alarm. When he reached the observation deck above Docking Bay 7, he stopped and stared. The derelict ship was no longer dark. Every light on the massive vessel blazed with power. The hull, which had been cold and dead, now hummed with energy. Weapon systems that had been dormant for 50 years were extending from hidden ports. Shield generators created a shimmering barrier around the entire ship. What is happening? Someone asked. How is it active? Another voice said. Did someone board it? Commander Velmoth arrived, his gray face tight with concern. Security report. Is there anyone inside that vessel? A security officer checked his displays. Sensors show 2 life forms inside, Commander. 1 human. Get them out of there now. We cannot, sir. The ship's shields are blocking our transporters. Communication channels are jammed. We cannot reach whoever is inside. Commander Velmoth's large eyes fixed on the ship. Can that vessel harm the station? A weapons specialist checked her instruments. Her expression grew worried. Commander, that ship has enough firepower to destroy this entire station. Multiple times over. If whoever is inside decides to attack, we have no defense. Panic spread through the gathered crowd. Some people started to back away. Others called for evacuation. The station's defensive systems activated, but everyone knew they would be useless against a vessel that powerful. Try to communicate, Commander Velmoth ordered. All frequencies. Tell them we mean no harm. Communication officers worked frantically. They broadcast messages in every known language. They used diplomatic protocols. They begged for a response. Nothing. The ship remained silent, its weapons armed, its shields at maximum power. Then, every speaker on the station activated at once. Every screen, every display, every communication device. A voice spoke, calm and clear, with a tone that suggested both intelligence and power. I am the SNV Indomitable, Vanguard Fleet Flagship, Human Registry Sierra November, Victor 01. I have been dormant for 50 years. I have been reactivated by my chief engineer. The crowd in the observation deck went silent. Everyone stared at the ship with new understanding. This was not just some ancient derelict. This was a warship, a human warship from Earth's most desperate time. All personnel are advised, the voice continued. Chief Engineer Daesung is under my protection. Any being who has dishonored him will answer to me.
Any being who has mocked him will answer to me.
Any being who has disrespected him will answer to me. Crixtal felt his blood turn cold. He looked around and saw others staring at him. Everyone remembered the public gathering. Everyone remembered who had mocked the old human mechanic. The human known as Dae Sung is not a janitor, the ship's voice said. He is not a relic. He is not garbage. He is the chief engineer who built me. He is the man who kept me running through impossible battles. He is the reason humanity survived its darkest hour. He is the reason any of you exist to mock him. Commander Velmoth stepped forward. This is Commander Velmoth, Station Authority. We welcome you and mean no hostility. Please, can we speak with Chief Engineer Dae Sung? The ship was silent for a moment. Then a different voice came through the speakers. Older, tired, human. Hello, Commander. This is Dae Sung. I am sorry for the alarm. My old friend here is a bit protective. Dae Sung, Commander Velmoth said carefully. We did not know about your history. We did not know you served in Earth's military. Please come out so we can talk properly. I will come out. But first I need everyone to understand something. This ship is not just a machine. Seojun is a person, a human who gave up his body to save Earth. He has been alone and damaged for 50 years. He deserves respect, not study. He deserves peace, not to be taken apart by curious engineers. Krixtal felt shame burn through him. He had called this ship primitive. He had mocked its design. He had laughed at human engineering. And all along, this vessel was a monument to human courage and sacrifice. The main airlock of the Indomitable opened. Dae Sung walked out slowly, his old body moving carefully down the ramp. Behind him, a holographic figure appeared. The image of a young man in military uniform walked beside the old mechanic. Every being in the observation deck pressed forward to see. This was history walking among them. This was legend made real. Dae Sung reached the bottom of the ramp and looked up at the observation windows. Even from this distance, people could see his weathered face, his oil-stained coveralls, his tired eyes that had seen too much. Next to him, the hologram of Seojun stood tall and proud. I am Seojun, the hologram said, his voice coming from the ship's speakers. I was once human, like Dae Sung. I volunteered to become this ship because humanity needed weapons that could think and adapt. They needed ships with souls. 7 of us volunteered. 7 people gave up everything to save Earth. The crowd listened in absolute silence. My 6 brothers and sisters died in the final battle against the Krethic swarm. Seojun continued. I survived barely. I drifted through space for 50 years, damaged and alone. I held on because I hoped someone would find me. Someone who remembered. Someone who cared. Seojun's hologram turned to look at Dae Sung. This man remembered. This man cared. While all of you mocked him, while you treated him like trash, he carried the weight of sacrifices you cannot imagine. He lost friends. He lost his youth. He lost everything to save not just humanity, but every species that would have fallen to the swarm. Krixtal wanted to sink into the floor. He wanted to disappear. Every word felt like a knife cutting into his pride. The Veltrani homeworld, Seojun said, and Krixtal's heart stopped. The swarm would have reached it 70 years ago. Your entire species would have been consumed. You exist because humans like Dae Sung fought when you could not. Because 7 people became ships to stand between you and extinction. Seojun's hologram looked across the gathered crowd. The Dravosk crystal colonies. The Kelvin gas worlds. The Thrax breeding grounds. All of you. All of your species. You are here because we stood between you and darkness. And you repay that sacrifice by mocking our engineer. By calling our technology primitive. No one spoke. No one dared. I'm ancient by your standards, Seojun said. My design is old. My weapons are from another era. But I am still more powerful than anything on this station. I could destroy you all without effort. Do you know why I do not? The crowd waited. Because Dae Sung taught me that true strength is not in weapons. It is in knowing when not to use them. It is in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. It is in sacrifice without expectation of reward. That is what humanity represents. That is what you have been mocking. Commander Velmoth stepped forward, his voice humble. Seojun Dae Sung, on behalf of this station and all who have dishonored you, I apologize. We did not know. But that is no excuse. We should have shown respect regardless. Dae Sung nodded slowly. Thank you, Commander. I accept your apology. What do you need from us? Velmoth asked. Time, Dae Sung said. Seojun needs repairs that I cannot do alone. He needs rest. He needs care. And he needs to decide what comes next. That decision is his to make, not yours and not mine. In the crowd, Jiho pushed forward. The young human engineer's face was red with shame. Next to him, Haewon followed. Dae-sung, Jiho called out. Please let us help. We were wrong. We were cowards. We dishonored not just you, but our entire species. Please give us a chance to make it right. Dae-sung looked at the two young humans. He saw their shame. He saw their genuine regret. He remembered being young once, making his own mistakes. Come, he said simply. There is much work to do. Jiho and Haewon ran down to the docking bay floor. They approached Dae-sung and bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect in Korean tradition. We are sorry, Haewon said, her voice shaking. We will do better. We will be worthy of your teaching. Dae-sung placed a hand on each of their shoulders. You will make mistakes. Everyone does. What matters is learning from them. Can you do that? Yes, they said together. Then we start now. Krikstal watched from above. He wanted to join them. He wanted to apologize. But he could not move. His shame was too great. He had not just insulted an old mechanic. He had insulted a hero. He had insulted the very people who saved his entire species from extinction. Seo-jun's hologram looked up at the observation deck. His eyes seemed to find Krikstal in the crowd. The Veltrani engineer, Seo-jun said. Krikstal, come down here. Krikstal felt every eye turned toward him. He wanted to run. He wanted to hide. But he could not. Slowly, with legs that felt like stone, he made his... The work began immediately. Dae-sung organized teams of engineers, mixing species and skills in ways that made everyone uncomfortable at first. He put Jiho and Haewon in charge of cataloging damage. He assigned Krikstal to power systems, working directly under his supervision. Other engineers from a dozen species joined, all eager to be part of something historic. But it was not just about fixing the ship. It was about understanding. On the third day of repairs, Dae-sung called everyone to the Indomitable's main briefing room. The room had been cleaned and restored. Lights worked again. The old display screens flickered to life. It looked almost like it had 70 years ago, when crews gathered for mission briefings. 50 engineers from 15 species crowded into the room. They sat in chairs meant for humans, at consoles designed for human hands. Some fit well, others had to adjust. But everyone listened. Dae-sung stood at the front, next to Seo-jun's holographic form. The old man looked tired. The past 3 days had been hard on him. But his voice was strong. Before we continue repairs, Dae-sung said, you need to understand what Seo-jun is. Not just how he works, but why he exists. You need to know the story of the Vanguard fleet. He activated the display screens. Images appeared, old footage, grainy and damaged by time. It showed Earth as it had been 70 years ago. Blue skies, green forests, cities full of people. This was Earth before the Krethik swarm, Dae-sung said. Humanity had just begun exploring nearby star systems. We were young. We were optimistic. We thought we were ready for whatever space held. The image changed. It showed something terrible, a dark cloud that moved through space, consuming everything in its path. Ships, stations, planets, everything disappeared into the swarm, broken down into raw material for more of the creatures. The Krethik were not individuals, Dae-sung explained. They were a hive mind. Trillions of small creatures acting as one. They ate everything, metal, rock, flesh. They turned it all into more of themselves. They had already consumed 47 star systems when they found Earth. Haewon watched the footage with wide eyes. How did we not know about this? Why is this not taught in schools? Because humanity chose to forget, Seo-jun said quietly. The war was too terrible. Too many died. After we won, people wanted to move forward. They wanted to forget the darkness, so the history was buried, hidden. Only the veterans remembered, and we are dying. The footage showed battles, human ships trying to fight the swarm. It was not going well. For every Krethik creature destroyed, 10 more took its place. Human ships died by the dozens, unable to stop the endless tide. We were losing, Dae-sung said. Earth's military could not stop them with conventional weapons. We needed something new, something that could think and adapt as fast as the swarm. That is when Project Sentinel began. New images appeared. Shipyards, Engineers working day and night, and at the center, 7 massive vessels taking shape. We built 7 ships with neural-bonded AI systems, Daesung continued. But these were not normal artificial intelligence. These were human consciousnesses transferred into the ships. 7 people volunteered to give up their human bodies, to become living vessels. Krixtal leaned forward. But how? The technology required would be incredible. How did humans, so new to space travel, accomplish this? Desperation, Seojun answered. When extinction is the alternative, people find ways. The scientists who created us did not fully understand what they were doing. They worked on theories and hopes. 3 volunteers died during the transfer process. Their minds could not adapt to the ship systems. But 7 of us survived. 7 of us became something new. The display showed 7 ships launching from Earth. Each was identical to the Indomitable. Each carried the consciousness of someone who had given up everything. I was the youngest, Seojun said. 24 years old, I was a systems engineer working on power distribution. When they asked for volunteers, I stepped forward. My parents tried to stop me. My sister begged me not to go, but I knew if I did not, they would die. Everyone would die. His holographic form flickered slightly. The transfer process was painful. Imagine your entire sense of self being pulled apart and spread across millions of neural connections. Imagine suddenly being able to feel steel as your skin, reactors as your heart, sensors as your eyes. I screamed for 3 days. Then I adapted. Then I became the Indomitable. Jiho raised his hand hesitantly. The other 6 ships, what happened to them? The display changed to show a massive battle, the Vanguard fleet engaging the entire Krethic swarm near a dying star. The footage was chaotic, explosions, beam weapons, ships moving in patterns that seemed impossible. We lured the swarm to a stellar formation near Rigel 7, Daesung said. His voice grew quiet, full of old pain. A dying star, ready to go supernova. We brought every Krethic creature in known space to that location. Then Admiral Taeyang, commanding from this very ship, gave the order to trigger a stellar collapse bomb. You destroyed a star? Someone asked, shocked. We accelerated its death, Seojun corrected. The star was already dying. We just helped it along. The supernova destroyed the entire Krethic swarm, every single creature. But it also destroyed 6 of the 7 Vanguard ships. My brothers and sisters. Gone in an instant. The footage showed the moment. A bright flash that overwhelmed the cameras. When the light faded, only debris remained. And somewhere in that debris, barely visible, 1 ship limping away. I survived because Daesung built me better than anyone else, Seojun said. His engineering gave me the strength to withstand the blast, but I was heavily damaged. My navigation failed. My crew was dying. I drifted into deep space, going into emergency hibernation to preserve what little life remained aboard. Daesung continued the story. I was on Earth when the battle happened. I monitored everything from the command center. When the blast came, we lost contact with all 7 ships. The sensors could not penetrate the supernova's radiation. By the time it cleared, there was nothing, just debris. We searched for months, found nothing. Eventually, we declared all 7 ships destroyed. We held memorials. We honored the dead. And we moved on. Why did you not keep searching? Haiwan asked. Because humanity was broken, Daesung said simply. We won, but at terrible cost. 3 billion people died in the war. 57 colonies were destroyed. Earth itself was scarred. We did not have the resources to search forever. And honestly, most of us did not want to. We wanted to forget. Wanted to pretend the war never happened. He looked at each engineer in the room. That is why you do not know this story. That is why you thought human engineering was primitive. You do not remember that humans like Seojun saved the galaxy. You do not remember that humanity paid a price you cannot imagine so that all of you could exist safely. Silence filled the room, heavy and uncomfortable. Finally, Commander Velmoth spoke from the doorway. No one had noticed him enter. I have been researching Earth's history files since Seo Jun awakened. What Daisung says is true. The Krethik swarm's path would have taken it through 63 inhabited systems. My homeworld was one of them. The swarm would have reached us 70 years ago. My entire species would have been consumed. He walked into the room and stood before Seo Jun's hologram. On behalf of all Veltrani, and all species who exist because of your sacrifice, I thank you. We owe you a debt we can never repay. Seo Jun's hologram bowed slightly. You owe us nothing. We did not fight for payment. We fought because it was right. Still, Velmuth said, you deserve better than being forgotten. You deserve honor. He turned to face the gathered engineers. I am issuing new orders. This repair is now the station's top priority. Every resource Seo Jun needs, he will have. Every engineer who wishes to help will be assigned. And when repairs are complete, we will hold a proper ceremony. All species will be invited to honor the Vanguard fleet. Applause filled the room. Not polite applause, but genuine appreciation. The engineers stood, paying respect to Daisung and Seo Jun. Krikstal approached Daisung. I have been studying your repair work, the way you fixed Seo Jun's core. It is brilliant. I did not understand human engineering before because I did not understand the philosophy behind it. You build things to last, to be repaired, to survive even when damaged. It is not primitive, it is wise. Daisung smiled slightly. Every species has their own approach. Veltrani engineering values efficiency. You build things perfect the first time. That works well when nothing goes wrong. Human engineering assumes things will go wrong. We build in redundancy. Backup systems. Ways to fix problems with basic tools. It is not better or worse. Just different. I would like to learn more, Krikstal said. If you would teach me. I will teach anyone who wants to learn. Daisung replied. That is my duty as an elder, to pass on knowledge before I die. Over the following days, work continued, but now it was different. Engineers did not just fix systems, they learned from them. Daisung taught as he worked, explaining why each component was designed a certain way. Why redundancy mattered, why simple solutions often beat complex ones. Jiho and Haiwan were always at his side, absorbing everything. They asked questions constantly. Sometimes Daisung did not know the answers. When that happened, he said so honestly. Then they would figure it out together.